holiday season, you might be looking for nutritious, convenient meals to keep you energized on jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you fuel up for brekkie, lunch, or dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. They just drop them at your door, people. You'll save time and eat well. You'll stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while taking all of your holiday to-dos in stride with good meals in the tum-tum. If you're too busy with all this stuff, these meals are easy to get done. They taste great. All you've got to do is head over to factormeals.com/expandingreality50 and use code expandingreality50 to get 50% off. That's code expandingreality50 at factormeals.com/expandingreality50 to get 50% off.
Grandma, can I have the chocolate chips?
This secret recipe moment made possible by Emory Heart and Vascular Center. When Grandma needed heart care, she came to Emory. The difference? Emory Healthcare performs more heart procedures annually than anyone else in Georgia, which means better outcomes for our patients. And we offer advanced and personalized treatments developed by our top specialists that others don't. Like Grandma knows, where you start your heart care matters. Smart Cookie. EmoryHealthcare.org/smartcookie.
A choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a ride.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality. A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this episode, I got to sit down with Andy Chaplin. He is one of the co-hosts of the Paranormal Peepshow in the UK. It's a fantastic program over there, ran, of course, with Neil Geddes Ward, who we've also already had on the show. It's wonderful to talk to Andy. He has such a wide variety of topics that he's interested in. We go into paranormal, entities, ghosts, mediumship, a little bit of UFOs and Slender Man and, entities and all this cool stuff, man. I mean, talking to Andy is great, and we go down some really deep spiritual rabbit holes as well. So it's got a little bit of everything. He's a wonderful talk to. You guys will really enjoy this episode. So without any further ado, Andy Chaplin. All right, gang, welcoming to the show, it is good friend Andy Chaplin. How are you today, buddy?
Pretty good, Brandon. How are you?
Every day above ground is a great one, man. Thank you so much for asking. So, Andy, you are one of the co-hosts of the Paranormal Peepshow over there in the UK. You guys gave me the honor of being a guest on your show. I was extremely grateful. That was a lot of fun, man. We had a good time.
It was, yes. And I think from memory, we're pretty much on the same wavelength with quite a few things, politically, spiritually, and all of that jazz.
That's what it sounds like, man. As we were having our conversation, it went deeper and deeper into more spiritual things, and that was something I am always grateful to talk about. There has been this Higher Self Expo that I've been releasing episodes for, and I had a few of the guests on, which is very, very cool. I would love to get a few of them in touch with you guys over there so y'all can have a couple on as well. It's fantastic, man. It's very, very deep. All these people are incredible. So, besides the Paranormal Peepshow, man, and for my audience that doesn't know too much about you, if you don't mind, just let us know a little bit about yourself, brother.
Okay, so I started off with a lot of woo-woo type experiences when I was younger, and that led me into a fascination with all things paranormal. But it kind of intrigued me but scared me at the same time, so I shut it down basically up until around about the year 2000. That point I kind of joined a couple of spiritualist churches and wanted to develop psychically, basically. I kind of this was the height of things like Most Haunted and kind of ghost TV shows like that, and had a medium called Derek Acora who's very controversial, but he kind of like spurred me on into the idea of doing ghost investigations and mediumship. And so at the spiritualist development circles, we basically sit in a circle, as the name suggests, and try and tune in, and I found I was getting things fairly thick and fast. That sent me very much into a mediumistic level. We could go into a lot of different directions with this, Brandon, because I started off very kind of fluffy clouds and rainbows and everything's angels and everything's wonderful. And then like a juggernaut, in came a lot of other weird, freaky shit, including TI stuff. And for people who don't know what that's about, targeted individual stuff, which was just mind blowing. And yeah, that's kind of like a very condensed version. I can go into some of the experiences that I've had all the way from birth till up until maybe about 2 months ago when I had a shadow man experience. And I don't know if our interview that we had, I don't know if at that point it had happened or not, but it was a really intriguing one.
We did, yeah. You brought it up on the show, but it's fascinating. My audience, I don't think, has heard it unless they've heard that interview. And you also said something about a cigarette, which I appreciate, if you want to do that for us in your own words. So go ahead and tell us your story, mate.
Oh, remind me of the cigarette. You
called it a fag, and we don't call it that.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah.
And right. So you said, "Well, for my American audience, cigarettes." And I was like, "Oh,
I do remember that."
Yeah, good call on that, man. It's a little bit of a touchy subject, that word in particular, but it means something different over there, and we are culturally embracing over here. So it's all good, brother. So tell us about your shadow man. That was cool.
Okay, so I've had a lot of odd things happening over the years, and really not much has been happening for the past, I'd say, 10 or 15 years, not that significant, really. But this one particular time was about 2 months ago, and something that I've noticed when things were properly woo-woo, which we might get into a bit later on, but they seem to be accompanied with helicopters, and they seem to be accompanied with like earth-based human physical reality, weird things happening. And one thing that I was noticing way back in kind of like the year 2000 to 2005, that was my proper weird moment in life. When I was getting odd stuff happening, I was getting a lot of helicopter activity, and you can kind of think, oh, well, maybe it's just, and this was 2:00 in the morning. You could kind of think, oh, maybe it's just kind of like a police search for a missing person, or maybe there's a robbery happening or something like that. But I was noticing it was happening like 2:00 in the morning for about 5 days in a row. And you just kind of think, well, how many missing people are there at 2:00 in the morning, 5 days in a row? How many burglaries are happening where they need a helicopter in the air for, for 5 days in a row? And I was sitting there because I'm a bit of a night owl, and I'm watching TV, and I'm up till late, and I'm noticing 2:00 it's back again. This bloody thing's buzzing back again, and it was an actual physical buzzing helicopter. This is relevant because with the Shadow Man incident, I was off on a little walk, and I wasn't thinking woo-woo or paranormal, but I was off on a little walk in a field, and I just happened to notice this helicopter buzzing around, and it seemed to be buzzing around the field that I was walking in. And again, logically, and I think it's really important to always go to the rational and logical first before jumping in with anything woo-woo and supernatural. I was thinking, oh, yeah, here we go. So missing person, and my worry was, my concern was maybe they're looking for like a what's the word? A bad person, criminal, maybe a criminal on the run.
Like a criminal, yeah.
And maybe I was going to be confronted with police dogs and police vans and that kind of thing, but that didn't happen. But it seemed to be kind of like circling the field and following me. I carried on walking, and I was heading towards the river, and I noticed it was kind of like going where I was going. So it was kind of seemed to be tracking me in a weird way, but it was doing it in a very wide kind of berth. Carrying along the river. This is quite a remote part, so there are towns nearby, but this is a quite countrified part. I was sat at a bench. This helicopter, I kid you not, there's a beautiful lake in front of me, starts hovering around the lake where I'm sat. And it's kind of, at one point, it was sat there buzzing, almost looking at me, on the, kind of above the water, probably about 200 meters ahead, just looking at me. And I'm just thinking, do I look like a missing person? Like if I was a criminal, wouldn't I be hiding in a hedge or kind of like running away? What possible business have they got kind of buzzing me? And then it kind of like took me back to the weird woo-woo stuff in around about year 2000, 2005. And I thought, oh, okay. So I sat there, it was beginning to get dark, and I noticed to the right of me, there was like a shape that kind of like moved in, and it was very much corner of the eye thing, so it wasn't square on. And I wasn't expecting anything strange. I was just expecting like a dog or a fox or human or something like that. But the weird thing is, it made no sound. It just came in. I couldn't quite recognize it, and then it zipped off again. And I kind of looked round, and there was absolutely nothing there. And thought, a bit strange, because it seemed to be too small to be an actual human and too big to be like a dog or a fox. It was kind of in between. So I just ignored it. I just put it down to, I don't know, God knows what it was, muntjac deer, who knows. So then I got up, carried on walking down the river, The helicopter had gone by this point. I circled around because I do like a big loop, and I was walking along this particular river bank. And as I was coming along, there's a river on the right hand side, and there's horse fields on the left. So there's really not many places to go. Walking along, this was twilight, not completely dark, not completely light, in between, and I noticed what looked like a black kind of shadow silhouette of a person. Now, there is in psychological terms something called pareidolia, I think, where your mind interprets kind of shapes and tries to make sense of them. This 100% was not that. It was a figure. It was an absolute silhouette of a person. Again, I wasn't thinking woo-woo. I was thinking maybe this is where the fag bit comes in. I was thinking it was like a youth or something smoking a fag, and for our American audience, a fag is a cigarette. It's not a gay person. It's a cigarette.
Yes, sir. We have to delete. It's just the times we live in, man. Go ahead.
I know. So I thought it was somebody having a cigarette or smoking a joint. A lot of people smoke weed where I am now. Like everywhere you go seems to smoke a weed. And I was thinking, that kind of awkward situation where you're on your own and somebody's coming the other way and there's no one else around, and the awkward moment of what do you do? Do you acknowledge them? Do you say hi, or kind of like that?
You acknowledge them because they're another human being and you want to say hi, and you're a sweetheart to everybody. Yeah.
Exactly. And you're not sure if they're going to say, piss off or want to be left alone or whatever. And I was in my own little thoughts. So I was walking along and I was just kind of thinking, I hope it's not going to be trouble. I hope there's not like a gang of them kind of like wanting trouble. I got closer and closer. This black silhouette was kind of like started to move away from me slightly, and the weird thing was where the river was, the other side of that is a road, and you get cars coming and the headlights shine, and sometimes you can get kind of shadows kind of moving as the headlights go. And I was trying to work out whether this thing was moving in comparison to car headlights or my own shadow casting it, and I was kind of moving, but it wasn't. It was going on its own little volition. I got towards it, and I kid you not, it was about adult size, full human body. It was moving like a human. It melted into the metal fence as I got there. It just melted. There was nothing there. And I at that point, kind of like, it suddenly dawned on me, actually, this is not physical human reality. This is woo-woo stuff. And then I was thinking, well, what was that shape at the lake? And what was the helicopter? I didn't feel threatened. It didn't feel like it was a threatening being. Whether it was spirit or whether a lot of my friends seem to think it was ET related, I don't know. I don't have any missing time as far as I know, but I carried on walking, and I kind of like, I just thought in my mind, okay, that was nice. And I looked back and there was nothing there, literally nothing there. So that was the first experience of anything properly woo-woo for about 15 years.
Wow. Have you ever had something like in the movies just run up when you're on a ghost investigation or anything like that, and just run up and scare the hell out of you? Like on the movies, or that's all Hollywood stuff, right? Or does that happen in real life?
Do you know what? I used to think that anything that Hollywood produced in terms of scary movies and horror and that kind of thing was just pure Hollywood. But the more I watch kind of shows like yourselves and things like The Confessionals and Real Ghost Stories and things like that, and speaking to guests on Paranormal Peepshow, the more I realise there's a lot of truth based in a lot of things. And in terms of anything running up to me, no. In terms of things trying to scare me, yes. In terms of things trying to invade my dreamscape, yes. Yeah, there's a lot of proper weird things. And I'll tell you what else I'm noticing, Brandon, which is absolutely astounding. We have kind of like fictional made up beasts on Hollywood, things like kind of like the Slender Man and things like that. Okay, so Slender Man is kind of like I don't know how far it dates back, but I think it's back to either the 1990s or the 1980s.
Yeah, he's not that old. It's relatively
new. It's not that old.
Yeah.
But we're getting reports of some people swearing blind that they see these Slender Man or Wraith or Rake type beings. And I'm just wondering, is there some kind of strange consciousness that's tapping into human psyche, tapping into human subculture, dragging out images of what we find scary and kind of presenting itself as that?
I think this is an awesome idea. This absolutely is possible, right? Because if you think of the tulpas, the thought forms, like that's all that is. Like you create that every time you have a thought about something crazy, it just manifests in some reality, rather this one or another one. That's the idea anyway. So if you're talking about people who like spend a lot of time and energy coming up with a character or a demon or a villain for a story, like a horror movie, something like that, then yeah, it's going to already be imbued with emotional energy and power from a human being creating that. So yeah, then if that could then be a tulpa or a thought form that manifests in reality in some way, then one would think that there could be an equally awesome entity that would be able to tap into your psyche and then bring that to life for you in whatever way that manifests as well. I mean, because these things pop out either just in your mind's eye or maybe in physical reality. The side of the eye thing is really interesting. I was talking to my nephew about this. He swears he keeps seeing somebody in the hallway over here. It's kind of scaring the shit out of me. I haven't seen it, and I asked him not to talk about it because I'm not I think it's interesting. I don't really care to think something's standing there that I can't see that he can see. Anyway, but yes, I think the idea of an entity that can pull things from your thoughts and then dick with you in some way about it, I think that's pretty cool, man. That's a cool thought experiment.
Yeah, the tulpa idea, again, I'm not quite sure how old this concept is or where it comes from, but it's something I've come across before, and when it was first expressed to me, it was really intriguing. And I think the first time I might have heard of it, there was a mediumship seance experiment where a group of people came together, and they specifically said, we don't want to contact like an actual spirit. We want to see if we can create our own spirit with its own story and its own background. And it wasn't kind of like a blind test or a double blind test. Everyone was in on it and they knew what the story was. And they actually started this Ouija board, and they actually started to get through this character. I think they called it John or something like that, a very kind of bland type name. And they actually started getting information related to this purely fictional character that they created. So there could be a few different things going on here. It could be purely psychological. So when they're moving the planchette, somehow their collective consciousness is doing it all in unison. Or they here's a possibility: their fictional character could actually be a real person, and that real person could have been influencing them. So when they're thinking of the name and the date and how he died and that kind of thing, who knows, they could be influenced by that. Or a possibility of one of these tulpas coming along and going, this is interesting, I'm going to be this John, I'm going to adopt everything to do with that and just feed it back to them.
Yeah, it's kind of like a skinwalker, how it can change into anything it wants, but why wouldn't a thought form be able to do that as well?
I mean, I don't know. I think you have a similar viewpoint as me, Brandon, in that the human race is a lot more powerful than we think we are.
Oh, yeah.
And we are kind of in a prison planet where we are told we are inconsequential. So you've got religion telling you that you should bow down before God and you're nothing. And you've got scientists saying you're a tiny little blip in the infinite expanse of reality and the universe. And basically you're nothing. Whereas what we are really in our own kind of worlds is we're everything. We're it. We are kind of like walking gods with a small g kind of thing. And I think we're kind of like suppressed deliberately, obviously. So whatever you want to call it, the Illuminati, the cabal, the deep elite can stay in control. And when we create things like these seances with these tulpas, maybe this is a way of us expressing our full potential to create what we want to create. And that's how the tulpas evolved as a possibility.
I love it. I think it's a fantastic idea. And it's kind of like what you're talking about people like us, right? Because there's a lot of us out there. There's not as many as we'd like, but there's still a lot of us out there. But it's kind of like that the Plato allegory of the cave, where there were people inside the cave, being shown shadows on a wall, and they were, in place or tied up or whatever. And then one, prisoner or person in the cave decided to escape to leave. Now, the people thought that those shadows on the wall were real reality. They'd never seen anything else. So when the person leaves the cave, sees the real world in 3D and color and the sun and everything, and comes back and tries to tell them about it, they don't believe him, and they think he's crazy, and they stay in the cave. This is kind of what we experience on a spiritual level as well, with these kind of ideas, with these kind of thoughts, is we are the ones who have decided to question the shadows on the wall and to leave the cave. And then when you try to explain it to somebody else and until they see it for themselves, you really can't. That's why I think people like you are incredible, and discussions like this are wonderful, because we get to just talk about all this cool shit. I know you call it woo-woo, and I refer to that as well, but I love it, man. I think that this is wonderful. So as far as your experiences go, what was the catalyst for this? Like, what got all this stuff started? Have you been doing this since you were a kid, or is this a hereditary thing? Do other people in your family experience it as well?
Right, I could rattle through it and see what you think, really. And what I would say to the audience is that whether people believe it or not, it's completely up to them. It's not for me to kind of force people to believe it. If you want to believe it, believe it. If you don't. But I do it to the best of my knowledge, and I do it honestly. My family is technically Church of England background, but they're open to the psychic woo-woo stuff, as I call it, very tongue-in-cheek, but that's what I call it. My grandmother has had psychic experiences. My mother has had psychic experiences. My dad's side, not so much. So I think I get it from my mum's side. Okay, let's go back to when I was in my cot, my first ever experience. I must have been about 2 years old, something like that. It would be when I was in my cot. I remember that the landing light was on. This was upstairs. There was a yellow landing light. There was no one else in the room. And beside my cot, there was like a big teddy bear. And I just remember in like a big, deep, booming voice, very distinctly, "Hello, what's your name?" Oh. And even at that age, I thought that was a bit wrong. Like I knew that shouldn't be happening, kind of thing. And I kind of ignored it. Because it's such a lasting memory. It's just stuck with me for years. And again, "Hello, what's your name?" Now, I don't think that was a teddy bear talking. What I think was going on, what I've learned subsequently, is that you know the kid from Sixth Sense. Okay, so he has all this kind of like psychic and ghost and spirit type activity. I think I was supposed to be on that path, but it was a choice for me to kind of like run with the mediumship thing or not run with the mediumship thing. I believe the voice saying "hello, what's my name" was a spirit guide, and I believe it was coming from the teddy bear as a way to get me to try and talk to the teddy bear. So if you think you're imagine you're an adult and you've got a child, and you're playing with a teddy bear and you have a little conversation with the teddy bear. I think spiritually that's what they would try to get me to do, because had I sat up and gone, "Hello, my name's Andy," and started conversing with this teddy bear, I think it would have gone in the direction of Sixth Sense. I think I would have started seeing spirit guides and spirit earlier, and I think it was a catalyst to try and get me on that pathway. However, what actually happened was I found it really freaky, and I shut it down, and I just closed my eyes, and I just wanted it to go away, and it did. So this is why I believe it was a spirit guide, because the spirit guide would respect free will and would respect that if you really don't want to go down that path or you're not ready for it, then you're not ready for it. And they backed off, and I didn't really have anything of a haunted nature from that point on. I've had deja vu, so this is rolling on to around about 4 or 5 years. This will be the first grade, as you'd call it, of school, and I had a very distinct dream. The dream was I'd been sent to the library for being naughty. I thought I wasn't particularly naughty, but I sent to the library for being naughty, given some work to do, and in the dream, this girl with long golden hair comes along. She's holding some plastic beakers and a water jug. She comes up to me, and we have a bit of a conversation. She says, "Oh, have you been naughty?" And I said, "No," and all that kind of thing. She then walks off. A very, very bizarre random dream. 2 weeks later, I get sent to the library for being naughty. I didn't think I was particularly naughty. Blonde-haired girl appears. She's holding water jugs. She's holding beakers. She comes up to me. At this point, we talk about like hair standing up on the end. At this point, I'm thinking, this is what the hell is. She then asks, "Am I being naughty?" No. We have a conversation. She walks off. I believe that was given to me to question reality. This was a Church of England school. Everything was Jesus and everything was God and everything was kind of by the Bible. And yet this comes along and shakes up my reality. And I think it was given to me specifically to say, "Andy, everything you're being taught, it might not be quite as you think." That happened.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. I can go on because there's a hell of a lot of stories.
Man, I love stories like this. Go ahead.
So okay, so roll on the years. We're talking around about 8, 9, 10. We went to this particular holiday camp. This was a short story, but it was my first, I believe, shadow man experience. And it was at a coastal area. It was a caravan park, and there was a kind of what do you call it, like a bomb shelter, concrete Second World War bomb shelter. All the kids in the local area were kind of playing there, and it was a kind of a go-to place for the kids on the camp. Now, this one particular day, I was walking past it, and I saw a shadow zip past, and it was definitely a human shadow, and it zipped past. I thought, oh great, it's going to be one of the kids, can have a play. I walked down there, walked in, hello, nothing there, completely empty. It just echoed around. That was a bit creepy. So that was a shadow man experience. Roll on a few years, so actually nothing really happened from then till around about sixth form. So sixth form for me, I was very much into a show called Strange But True, and anyone listening to this, it's a 90s show. It's a bit cheesy with Michael Aspel, but it's a really good series called Strange But True. You'll find it on YouTube and things like that, and got very into that. A friend of mine got a book on ghosts in southeast England, which is where I'm from, and we decided to kind of visit various haunted locations. Went to Borley Rectory, which is one of the most haunted places in the UK. Very strange, because some of the they've got a church and they've got a graveyard, and some of the gravestones seem to be smashed and cracked, which is very odd. Yeah, it's really, really odd. It's like someone's taken a sledgehammer and just like smashed each gravestone. Very, very strange. The actual Borley rectory itself is burnt to the ground, but it was a very haunted location. So we're doing a lot of that. We got chased off by the police in a polite way, but apparently the locals don't like people coming along and walking around the church. So this police car pulled up, and this was as we were just leaving, and they kind of like asked us what we were doing. Are we okay? And we said, oh, we're looking for a little chef, which is kind of like a restaurant in the UK. And they kind of gave us a very kind of, yeah, right. And then they just kind of let us go. So that was fine. Say again?
Oh, I said, you wankers.
Yeah, you wankers. Interestingly, some of the more negative stuff started happening around about that time. So here's a weird one. Now, this is going to sound very Hollywood, but this is how I remember it, and it sounds very strange. After the Borley Rectory visit and some of the ghostly kind of haunted areas that we went to, I started getting sleep paralysis. So I started kind of waking up, and it would always happen just before I woke up fully. I'd realise that my mind was awake and I was kind of lucid, but my body wasn't, and I kind of couldn't move. Didn't see any spooks or ghosts or aliens or anything, but it was just kind of odd that it happened at this time. Not only that, but I was getting a weird succession of birds flying into the window, boom, and some of them either kind of dying on the ground below or kind of like being injured, and that seemed very odd. And along with that, I was also getting scratching noises. Now, I wasn't thinking at this point, I wasn't thinking ghosts. I was thinking there's a bat or a mouse or a rat or something in the loft. So, and the loft is English for attic. So went up into the loft and just had a look round. And the weird thing is, every time I went up into the loft, the scratching stopped, then come back down again, and the scratching would start again. And the scratching again would kind of be around when I was kind of like in the coming out of sleep paralysis or coming into kind of like reality from dreaming. So that was kind of very strange, and the scratching kept on happening. And I noticed what kept happening with it is just odd experiences and odd things kept happening, and then it kind of subsided and nothing really happened. So whether it kind of got bored or I don't know, but it kind of like subsided. What really got me into the psychic and the spiritual, the reason I went to spiritualist churches, is that I actually had a cat that went missing. Now this is around about 2000, around about that time. And I went to go and see a psychic in Epping, and she was really good actually, and she told me a lot of things that were true about myself, or things that then subsequently came true in my life. That kick started me to kind of watch things like ghost shows and Most Haunted and things like that, and that then kick started me to things like the Spiritualist Church. Any questions so far, Brandon? I'm probably going. If I'm going too fast, let me know.
No, you're wonderful. You're wonderful. Finish the point, then I got a question for you. I like these experiences that you've had. It's great. Now, this is a great foundation.
I forgot what the point was, so far away.
Well, right on then. Okay. Well, I was going to ask you, are you into cryptids at all? Kind of like Bigfoot and chupacabras and stuff like that?
Oh yes. When I was on the fence, on the side of the fence that said strange stuff could be true, but probably just people's wild imaginations. But I'm telling you what, the more I'm listening to shows of people's experiences, heartfelt experiences where they've seen, I mean, you don't really get bears that walk upright that look like monkeys, as far as I know.
Right.
And so the answer is yes. It sounds crazy, but there's so much. This world is so not what we think it is. Almost anything is possible. Is my view on that.
Agreed. Completely agreed. We don't know, and it's all possibilities. So, do you think that cryptids are spirits, or spirits are cryptids, or do you think that there's a total difference, or that they're connected in any way at all?
I definitely think there's a connection. I think that we as humans used to categorize things. So we'll put aliens over there, we'll put ghosts over there, we'll put cryptids down there, we'll put flying saucers down there. And, you know, sometimes you'd have the ghost lot that wouldn't really talk to the alien lot, and the alien lot really wouldn't talk to the ghost lot. I think it's all connected. And I think what we're talking about is dimensions and realities. And I'll tell you what, when I saw the first Matrix movie, the hairs were just going up the back of my neck, because the dialogue in the Matrix movie, I just thought, that's it. The Wachowski brothers, they know something here. And when there was the discussion of the Matrix, the Neo and the Oracle, and they were talking about programs, hacking programs. They were talking about, so what about vampires, or what about aliens, or what about ghosts? And the Oracle says it's programs hacking programs. And I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the interdimensional possibility as well, because Bigfoot could just be in a different dimension, and they kind of accidentally, because they're kind of dumb, right? Inherently, they're big goobers. And so they may have wandered into our yard, and then just had to get back, and that's why we really don't see them. We don't have bodies or anything like that from the people that have reported it. The same with like a chupacabra or Wendigo or something like that. These things are awesome to me. A rake, like you said, shadow people. I mean, those fall more into the spirit line, but I agree with you that people have had these camps and these ideas that it's like UFOs are separate from paranormal, which are separate from cryptids, and I'm with you. I agree that I believe that they're all connected. I think that it's definitely one thing that's expressing itself in different mediums, right?
Exactly that. And there's the phrase paranormal, which is beyond normal, supernatural. It's super, it's above natural. I think all of these things are natural. We just haven't got an explanation for what they are.
I'm with you. It's all science that science hasn't figured out yet.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And what's quite interesting is that more and more I'm beginning to realize that people who are seeing these cryptids, especially the Sasquatch type things, are also seeing things like UFOs and seeing things like aliens and spirits as well. And it seems, I tell you what, it seems to come in waves. So when you get people that start seeing UFOs, they will then start seeing ghosts and spirits as well. And when you start seeing, when people start seeing ghosts and spirits, they might start seeing UFOs and ETs as well. And you got to wonder who's hijacking who. Are the ghosts and spirits hijacking the fact that people have tuned into aliens, or are the aliens hijacking the fact that people are tuning into ghosts and spirits? I don't know on that score.
Or what if it's all our mind creating everything? And there's nothing outside. It's just us creating all of it.
This is one of the most mind-blowing, scariest thoughts that I've come across, because it's not an alien concept to me, pardon the pun, but if you think about it, what if I'm actually talking to myself when I'm talking to you? And what if this whole world, this whole universe, everything around me, literally everything, it sounds really egotistical, but it's not, but it's all based on my perception of my reality and my universe. And what if you're an illusion? But then you could say the same. What if I'm an illusion? And when you're talking to me, you're talking to yourself as well. It's just when you start thinking like that, it starts melting your mind.
Well, let's do it. I like being mind melted. All of those things are true that you just said. There's that concept of the egg. So you either look at this through a couple of different lenses, and I don't really see a massive difference in anything other than definition between spirituality as far as the one experiencing itself subjectively and a simulated reality. I don't really have a huge distinction between the two. Now, they're juxtaposition because one of them is completely created by something. Some entity had to create a simulation. It didn't come about, but it's a technological creation. But there's little difference between a technological creation from a civilization and a god or an entity creating an experienced reality, an experiential type participatory reality. There are very little differences between the two. One created one created the other, but one created one through technology. But who's to say that what God creates our reality through is not technology also? So you can go down these long, deep paths with this kind of understanding, and to think then about if it is either a spiritual experience or a simulation, either one, then it would hold true that what you're experiencing is for you. I mean, it's just you're all that's here. There's nothing else here. You're me. I'm you. I'm a program telling you what you just wanted to hear based on something that you said. You're a program that I'm talking to. There's no distinction between the two. And if time is not an issue, right? That time is infinite to an infinite being, then why wouldn't it create this situation to be this immersive, this in depth?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that this reality is meant to be a playground for consciousness.
Agreed.
So it is kind of like God having fun with itself,
Agreed.
And Alex Jones, he's very controversial, but I do like Alex. Whatever people say about him, he actually said something on the spiritual that was really intriguing. He said that God knows everything except where God came from. And I think that's pretty. The more you think about that, the more I think that's exactly how it is. I think this God entity, this creative force, knows absolutely everything. So when we're talking about psychics and mediums, what I think they are doing is tapping into almost like a universal Google. That's the best way I can, because I do readings myself. I do tarot and psychic and mediumship myself.
Yeah, it's like what the Akashic records are.
So, say again.
The Akashic records, that's Googling. It's like everything, right?
Yeah. So what the reason I think psychics and mediums tap into it and can tap into it is because they have found a way to link to, as you say, the Akashic records, to the God mind, to the God consciousness, to the universal information field, and they are simply getting information and presenting it to people. And I think that's exactly what's going on. And I think kind of psychics and mediums have worked out how to do it. And I think they've been suppressed through the ages to try and stop certain information from getting out. So certain controlling groups, religious or science groups, can maintain their control, because if mediums and psychics do their thing, what is the point of religion? What's the point of the third person kind of thing? There's something I'd like people to go and look at. It's a film that's quite old now, but it's something called What the Bleep Do We Know? I don't know if you've seen that or not.
Yeah, I have. There's some controversy with the director, the creator, that movie being like like it was all bullshit, and that he was in a cult or something like that. There's some weird, it's got kind of a tainted element to it, but there's a couple of schools of thought on that. Maybe he was just what they say that he was, or maybe he was onto something and therefore they discredit him, like how people get child porn found on their computers and stuff like that after, they've been accused of something or start speaking out. All of a sudden those people have a way of going away. So maybe that's what happened with that movie, but it was very interesting, all the quantum physics stuff in it. I got a lot out of the film, whether it's controversial or not. Like you, I took something from it.
Yeah, and I think, you know what, it's the message that's important. So, for instance, I would say that every belief system and every religion probably has some degree of validity to it, but that's no reason to kind of dismiss the whole lot. So, for instance, Christianity, Jesus says, love thy neighbor. Okay, fine. But it also says it's a sin if you wear mixed cloth. So if you've got a polycotton jumper on, then you're committing a sin, which I think is insane. And I think it's bullshit.
It is both of those things, buddy. Yeah.
So, it's a pick and mix, really. And with the what the bleep do we know thing, this is news to me about the cult thing, but who knows, maybe even if it was like a cult thing that he was part of, how do we know that there aren't some elements of truth within that? Christianity was viewed as a cult when it first came to Europe, and indeed Britain was pagan way back in 1,000 years ago, whatever it was, and Christianity was viewed as a cult, and then it kind of took over and became the running dominant religion.
Some people still think it's a cult.
In a way, yeah. I mean, there certainly are cult elements of it, but then what is a cult?
That's the question.
I mean, define a cult first of all. If it's a series of questionable beliefs, well, then any religion is that, really.
Yeah, or people that get together regularly to play basketball or to play video games. It falls under the same description, right?
Yeah, yeah, and even dare we say it, the C word, there are elements of the COVID situation that were a bit cultish.
Oh, hell yeah, yeah, mass ritual, man, absolutely, yeah, that was an occult ritual for sure. That continues, and it's interesting. So let me ask you this: I was curious about when we talk about cryptids, UFOs, and everything, and how it's all mixed together. Do you think that we're going to find out what all this stuff is, or what it's all about?
Here's the slightly disappointing thing. I used to kind of think that when you pass over, when your physical body dies and you go into the spirit world, whatever that is, you then become privy to all information, you know, everything that is. But I'm kind of like realizing that actually sometimes spirit don't know it all. And so there are things in the spirit world that they don't know. And so we could carry all of the questions that we have about cryptids and Sasquatch and everything into the spirit world, and we would still not know, and we would still have to go other levels up to find out. But maybe, do you know what? Maybe, Brandon, maybe that's the whole point of the mystery element. If we knew everything, wouldn't that be like a killjoy factor? It's like going to watch The Matrix, but being told the entire script, or kind of like what happened beforehand.
My thoughts exactly.
I think we consciously make a choice not to know some things. Whether we'll find out about these things, I think we find out as we go along. And I think that if you get abducted by aliens, then you know that aliens are real. If you see a Sasquatch, then you know Sasquatch is real.
You know, this says it though, right? I mean, you've hit on, you know, you've just kind of breezed over it, but you hit on a very massive concept, right? Because you don't understand something until you observe or experience it. You know, we could be told all day, you know, that whatever, that this reality is what they say it is, that we went to the moon the way that they say that we did. We can be told that, you know, history is the way that it is, when there's some other ideas out there like Tatario the Mud Flood. I had Max Egan on. Have you ever heard of that guy?
I have, yes, I have heard of Max Egan.
He was so cool, man. It was a great conversation because I love the mud flood. I love that concept of a hidden history and the fact, or the idea that like the Dark Ages never existed. They were just a part that they had to fill in missing time because we're actually in 7,000 instead of 2,000 or something like that. You know, history is off. Now, these kind of ideas are interesting to me because who's to say what's real and what's not except for you and your observation? You can be told something, but that doesn't make it real for you. You could even be told that something horrible will happen to you, and then when nothing horrible happens to you, let's say you go ride a motorcycle and somebody's like, you're going to wreck or something, and you don't, well, then your reality is that person is incorrect, and maybe that you're not going to wreck. You know what I mean? Because it's based on your observation. And then it's just confidence, right? And confidence is just a series of successes. If you walk outside enough and you see the flat earth, you're going to say that the earth is flat. If you look into it a little bit, you're going to say they have some compelling stuff, and you're going to say that, well, the only reason that I believe that the earth is a ball or a globe is because somebody told me. Not because that's my experience of it. So it is interesting, man. I love things like this. So talk to me about some proper woo-woo, man. You mentioned it earlier. I'm ready for some damn woo-woo. Let's do it.
Right, let's go into some more woo-woo. So, year 2000, I was going into the spiritualist churches and doing development circles and getting quite good at it. I was really enjoying it, and it was coming thick and fast. Some people were progressing fairly slowly. You know, what does the color red to you mean to you? And I was getting things like names and dates and places and describing people's houses and relatives and that kind of thing. So I was on the fast track. I enjoyed it so much, I then started going on the internet. This is the very, very early days of kind of like chat rooms and things like that, psychic chat rooms. Started doing kind of readings for people for free, no money involved. I just did it for fun, and I was spending quite a lot of hours doing this. The more I was doing it, I call it the psychic gym, because the more I was doing it, the more the psychic muscle was getting bigger and bigger. And I then started kind of having thoughts about, I wonder if you could remote view places like Area 51, things like that, which I think is kind of like a slightly dangerous thing to do for anyone kind of like into the psychic realms, because there's reasons for that. So when I was doing readings for people, I then started noticing odd things. So as I say, 2:00 in the morning, I'd be watching TV, it'd be usually Most Haunted, and I'd notice the helicopter noises, as I say, and this was kind of like a succession of nights. It'd be like 5 nights in a row, these helicopter noises. As well as that, I was getting people following me. If I was like running or jogging, which I did a lot of, people would be flashing their headlights, or they'd be shouting abuse out of the window at me. Now, it was odd because, okay, lads do that, oh, wango, and all this kind of thing, but it just kept happening. And then I would notice when I was driving, I would have people tailgating me, and I would also have people flashing their headlights at me. And it was also in both directions. And this wasn't just a couple of times, it was again and again and again and again. And it was flashing headlights. It was to the point where I got home and I was looking at my testing all of my lights, testing my indicators, testing my headlights, testing my brake lights, testing my rear lights. Everything's fine. No punctures. What the bloody hell are they? Why are they doing this? Even cars coming towards me, flashing their headlights. What the bloody hell is going on? Then I started getting weird telephone noises. So on my telephone, and it's my old telephone, but there's this weird noise that it was making, like a dick, and like a high pitch, like it's dick, squeak, like a high pitched squeaking. Then
do that last one again.
Say again, Brandon.
Give me that last one again.
It's like a beep, squeak. It's really hard to kind of like. It's like a squeak, but it's high pitch.
Yeah, kind of like your smoke detector's going out, like a battery's low.
Yes.
On your smoke okay.
Yes.
Was
like
your smoke
that.
detector going out?
No, it's the telephone.
Okay, ruled that out. It's something else. Okay.
Yeah, we've got smoke detectors. Those have gone off in the past. That's another story. But this was the telephone. It was quite a distinct noise, and it was higher pitch than the smoke detector. I also then started getting weird phone calls. So I would get phone calls where nobody was there. I was getting phone calls where it was just dead. I get phone calls where, again, this noise was like and we got to the point where we were phoning BT, which is British Telecom, to find out if they were testing the lines or if there's a fault with the line. No, nothing, no testing going on. Everything's fine.
Now, can we rule out that this was Neil messing with you?
Neil I didn't know Neil at that point.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know Neil, and I don't know. He's never pranked me before. But no, I met Neil in around about 2010-ish. So
okay.
The woo-woo stuff is about 2000. And I don't know how anyone would replicate the noises. I mean, they could, but it was just odd. I also did get one death threat, which I just laughed at.
Really? Okay. What was that like?
That was literally, again, it was about 2:00 in the morning, and I got this phone call and says, "I'm going to kill you."
That was it?
Yeah, that was it. And I just said, "Oh, that's nice," and just hang up.
Did they say why? Did they know you? I mean, anything?
No.
Just I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. I took it as a prank. At this point, I did actually have my number in the yellow pages, so there could have been pranksters, but this wasn't kind of, "Oh, we're going to kill you," and then laughing in the background. This was just completely deadpan. One person, male, just very kind of like casually saying, "I'm going to kill you."
Can you track the number back, or do you guys have the ability to do that? You can call your phone company and say, "Hey, at this time we received a call."
There's something called 1471, which I tried, and nothing. You can block it. You can dial something like what is it, 12151 or something. Something blocks you from doing that. Get this, it gets weirder. So one of the other calls, two other odd calls, one of them was, again, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it sounded like, the best thing I can say, it sounded like either a transsexual person or like a trans person saying, "Hi Andy, I want a reading with you." It sounded kind of like a male who's pretending to be female, but there was 2 of them, and they were kind of like, "Oh please, we're really horny, we want a reading from you."
That was definitely Neil.
It could well have been Neil. So that was an odd one. And what was the other one? The one that was more odd than that was, there was somebody that phoned up, and he was like really, really hyper, and he was kind of like, "Oh man, the government are listening to us, and they're listening to us. They're doing everything they can to kind of like follow us. Like the government, they're in our minds. They've got like satellites that can go into our minds, man." And like, I'm into the conspiracy and the psychic woo-woo, but this sounded like somebody who had mental problems or was kind of like psychotic, or schizophrenic or something like that. So I wasn't rude or anything. I didn't tell him to F off. I just said, "Oh, okay, that's nice." But what was weird was the coincidence of it. He'd phoned my number. Why'd he phone my number? And he was talking about lots of conspiratorial woo-woo stuff that I now believe in, but didn't at the time. We then kind of ended the conversation, and I did do 1471, and it did go through to psychiatric unit. I spoke to a nurse, and I said, I don't suppose this is a psychiatric unit, is it?" And she goes, "Yeah, it is." And I go, "Oh, I think one of your patients called me." Now, what is quite interesting is, why did that particular patient particularly call me?
Yeah.
Out of all the telephone numbers, all the people, was it just randomly punching numbers in? Did somebody prompt him to call that? Did he find my number from somewhere? That's an odd one. Do you know, the more I'm thinking about it, the more woo-woo stuff I can think of.
Please, what else you got?
Okay, so I should really kind of have these as a bit of a timeline.
You're good, man. Just keep shooting them out.
Some of the most intriguing things I found on other podcasts are people talking about reality glitches or things that seem bloody impossible that happen anyway. So one particular time was what I call the cinema incident. So there's a group of us that used to go, a group of lads, we used to go to the cinema quite regularly, more or less every weekend at one point to see films. Fantastic. So we pile into my friend's car, little Polo, Volkswagen Polo. We're going off to Stevenage, which is a town in England, just above London, and nothing out of the ordinary. This was kind of like summertime. It was light, and we came across this very slow moving car, and it was on the left hand side. And I said, "Oh, just overtake this. Come on, we need to see the film. Overtake this." We overtake it, and I kid you not, I looked over and there was no one driving it.
Nuh-uh.
And I thought, could it be a little old lady? Is she kind of like doing this?
Yeah.
And I just, and it was right here. The car was right next to us. I looked over, and I kid you not, there was nobody bloody driving it. Nobody driving it. We overtook it, and my friend in front, because I was in the back, my friend in front turned around and said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Yeah, there was no one driving that, was there?" Now, was it a prank? Was it a TV show? Was it? And this was way before self-driving cars. So I know kind of like, I think it's Tesla or whoever it is are doing AI self-driving cars. This was around about 2003, 2004-ish, way before that. Could it be a prank? Could it become someone with a remote control that's driving it and kind of like a prank TV show, but you'd expect it to be on some kind of TV show?
No, it's a ghost, bro. England, you guys got a ton of them over there. They just drive cars around. They're just doing everything.
Yeah, and it just seems so out of place because it was so slow. Like the speed limit along this stretch was 40 miles an hour. This must have been doing about 20 miles an hour. Everyone was overtaking it. I have no explanation. I don't expect people to believe it. They don't have to. All I can say is, hand on heart, I would happily take a lie detector test and swear on it. Now, I mentioned that because there are some people in other podcasts also mentioning these reality glitches where things impossible happen that shouldn't happen. Like somebody was talking about seeing a Sasquatch and UFOs out in the country, and they said they were on this boat, and this boat came towards them, and there was no one driving the boat, and then it sped off again. Now, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I would call that person absolutely nuts. But now I'm thinking, do you know what? We don't know what's going on in this reality.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on.
Landed by sea, stuff's just driving itself around. That's crazy, man. Well,
it is. It's nuts. And I know it's nuts. And I know it sounds nuts.
It sounds interesting. I mean, it sounds cool. It sounds like just another one of those anomalies out here that we can't explain that we love talking about. And so that's totally awesome, man. So what is like the craziest ghost story that you've ever heard? Like from anybody ever, not your own, whatever, just crazy ass ghost story. Because I know you get bombarded with them being doing the work you do.
So hard because I've seen, honestly, I'm addicted to podcasts on ghosts and paranormal stuff. So I hear so many. I just know that it's so prevalent and that I think it's actually the norm, but people don't want to admit it's the norm because there are so many out there. And once people get to know what I do, they will open up to me. The most craziest, the most far out. I guess we would probably have to look at some of the most famous cases, like the Amityville cases, the Enfield poltergeist, The Conjuring. Interestingly, I read a report that for the filming of The Conjuring, they've had a lot of woo-woo things, and they said it took a lot of time for the cast and crew to get the film out of their heads.
Really?
Like when they went back after filming and kind of like in between filming, it's because the thing is, what I believe is when you focus on things happen. Okay, so during the filming of The Exorcist, they actually had to bring in an actual exorcist because weird things were going off. For the filming of The Poltergeist, lots of people died during and after the filming of the Poltergeist, and lots of paranormal weird things happened. And I think it's when you've got a collective group of people focusing on one theme or subject area that can open doors to things happening. And so it's absolutely fascinating, because everyone that's filming for the Exorcist and filming for the Poltergeist and really getting into their roles, they're focused on that aspect of the paranormal. And I think that certain entities from the paranormal jump on that.
Hell yeah.
And ride with it.
Damn, that's cool. I love the concept of ghosts. And so what do you think all of it's all about? What do you think that the spirits are here to do? Do you think that if it's not a projection of our mind, which we can't rule out, right, then what do you think their purpose is? Do you think they're just bored and here to mess with us? Or do you think that they have some wisdom to bring? Or do you think that there's one brush we can paint them all with?
I think all of the above. I think there's a phrase, isn't there, as above, so below. So you can get really wonderful, spiritual, amazing, gifted people, but you can also get Adolf Hitler and Stalin. And I think that's exactly the case in the spirit world. I think you could tune into some wonderful masters and guides and people who give you fantastic advice. And you could also tune into demonic entities that want to kill you. And I think one thing that kind of distinguishes what I found personally, the good from the bad, so to speak. The good, they don't massage your ego. They're usually very funny. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of dry wit and sarcastic humor, but in a well-meaning way. And I don't know if people watch, if your audience are aware of Daryl Anka and Bashar. I quite like Daryl Anka and I quite like Bashar. Again, it's controversial, but I think like things on a positive, upbeat kind of way can be quite on the light side of things. When you get things that are dark, these are ones that kind of like massage your ego, tell you that you're going to save the world, or you need to do this or you need to do that. There's a lot of theories that Hitler was actually influenced by demonic beings or dark entities. I mean, he started out as like a landscape painter in Austria. How do you go from watercolors to mass murder? But he took the
self-esteem. He has a lack of self-esteem. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The dark side will play on your ego, and they will slowly manipulate you. And when it gets to like a crescendo, you get things like the Aztec murders, where the Aztec high priests would be murdering 20,000 people in one go. And this is talking to their star gods, their space gods. And you talk about child sacrifice, in pagan or druidic times, and it was all over everywhere you go. Every culture seems to be doing kind of like these sacrifices and these murders. And I don't think that darkness has ever gone away, but I think it changes form. And so when we get people like Hitler coming along, I think he was absolutely swept up with evil and darkness. And I think that behind Hitler is a deep, dark, destructive, the opposite of God force. And it manifests with Hitlerism, it manifests with Stalinism, it manifests with communism. And I think it hasn't finished yet. I think it's an ongoing thing.
You know, an interesting idea that I had that I heard recently, this is not mine, but I find it fascinating, is that the earth is a spirit, right? Like the earth is a living entity and a spirit, which is not too far removed from what we all understand anyway, Mother Earth, right?
Yeah.
Gaia, absolutely. But that something happened, and the satanic force that's here is actually the spirit of another planet that was roaming around that didn't have its planet anymore because it got destroyed. You may say, Marduk, what is the planet in between the Jupiter and Mars that's now the asteroid belt that got destroyed?
Is this the Nibiru thing? Or was it something else?
Yeah, it's related to that. Tiamat. That's it. I just okay. Anyway, Tiamat. That's the idea, right? So anyway, it was basically a planet that got destroyed that was roaming around that needed a place to go, and it came here. So that is what it is. There's like a dual nature, a good spirit, which is Gaia or Mother Earth, and then a bad spirit here that's Satan, that's here to heal. And so Mother Earth is letting it heal here. It gets very woo-woo, right? But that's the point, and that's why we have all of the horrible, evil things that we have here. There are planets out in our solar system and in our universe and other universes, galaxies, whatever, that are perfect, that don't have the same kind of conflicts that we have here. And they have just the infinite ability to grow and to thrive and love, and it's all beautiful. And sunshine and puppy dogs and stuff, but it's we're only in the situation we're in because that, the satanic planet that was around that got destroyed needed a place to go, and that's why we have all that we have here, is the idea. And I just found it pretty interesting. I think it's kind of cool. If you look at everything's connected, everything's spirit, why wouldn't planets, if plants, animals, all those things have the essence of consciousness, the supreme, the unity consciousness within it, why wouldn't a planet do the same? And therefore other planets and moons and things like that have basically spirit attachment entities that they manifest in reality as a planet, right? It's pretty cool. I like the idea.
Yeah, totally. And I would bounce people in the directions of Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, I believe you've had on your show. The bottom line is that in order for good and love to experience itself as such, it needs the polar opposite. But in the big sense, even the evil guys and the bad guys might actually be working for the good, because at the end of the day, all of the actors come up on stage and take a bow, and we say, "Good job, guys. Well done for that acting."
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think the coupled with that, so that's the big reality type thing. In the slightly smaller reality, have you heard of this concept that the demonic realm on this planet apparently is that these beings, whatever they were originally the custodians of this planet. So whatever beings they might have kind of like manifested themselves physically or etherically, these demonic beings were kind of like originally here on planet Earth. For some reason, another race came along and kind of like overtook them or booted them out into a different dimension and then plonked humans here. So there's a theory why they hate humans is because they feel unjustly kind of like booted off this planet. I don't know if you've come across that.
Damn, no, but it makes sense. I could think of what Americans did to the Native Americans that were here. We do that. You do that to everywhere, right? You go in colonization. That's what it's all about, is taking somebody else's land and then making it your own, and then who gives a shit what happens to them, right? That's the idea. So why wouldn't that happen in the spirit realm? It makes complete sense. And then, of course, they would be here haunting the planet and haunting us. It's kind of like when you move into a haunted house and there's ghosts there that live there. They're like, no, this is my house, right? Beetlejuice, man, that was the whole damn thing. It's like this, get the hell out of my house type deal, right? And then they eventually found love and all became friends, which is wonderful. I like the idea. I think it's fascinating, man. So, I tell you what, man, we'll probably wrap it up here and then save some of the stories for another time, but I'd love to have you back on. I need to get you and Neil both back on, man. You guys are wonderful. Neil Get a Sword, of course, we've had on the show, and now I'm grateful to complete the set of the Paranormal Peep Show with Andy Chaplin. Andy, tell the folks where they can find you, man, and then we'll call it, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Brandon. There are many more stories which I'll get into later, but I would bounce people towards the Paranormal Peep Show on Facebook and also Tuned In events. So my little kind of like psychic group that do readings and that kind of thing, events and stuff, Tuned In events. I've recently done some TV filming actually for a ITV show which will air in September called Midsummer Murders. So that'd be quite interesting. So if there's any TV people looking for psychic themes, that would be kind of an interesting one as well. But yeah, that's all I can think of for the moment.
Yeah, and you just got picked up for that, but it turns out you really are a psychic medium, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, this is what was interesting about it. So I got that job from a friend of mine who's a psychic. She knows the producer of the show, and he wanted to create a psychic fair. It's all very kind of like tongue in cheek. I absolutely loved it. Fantastic location, and he wanted like a psychic fair. And he thought we were just kind of like actors that just bring along kind of props and stuff. But it turns out that we are kind of like real psychics and mediums. Once the staff and the crew and some of the actors got wind of that, then they were kind of like, "Oh, can you do us a reading?" So we ended up doing a few little readings for some of the crew and actors. So that was quite fun.
Oh, cool. Well, when that comes out, send me a link, man. I'll pass it around. That's pretty cool. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, I can't thank you enough, brother. I'll be linking all the ways to find you down in the show notes. And thank you so much, my friend. We will do it again soon, man.
Fantastic. Cheers. Thanks.
I want to give a huge shout out and a special thanks to Andy for joining us on the show today. Guy is fascinating. Make sure that you check out the links below to be able to find him and his show, The Paranormal Peep Show, which is very, very cool. It's done over there with Neil Get a Sword, of course, and both great guys, man. I mean, you couldn't meet nicer guys that are into some cooler stuff. So go check that out for sure. Also, while you're checking things out, this show can be found at expandingrealitypodcast.com. That is where the links to all of the socials, if you want to see the YouTube version version of any of these shows. There's a whole video element to this that you guys should take advantage of. Check that out for sure. Patreon's over there. All of the good stuff is there. It's one central hub for everything. So, big thanks again to Andy. While you guys are running around your week this week, look for some litter to pick up. Don't litter in the first place. Get out of that left-hand lane. Of course, that is a pain in the ass, so thank you all for doing that. And just go out into the world, guys, and just be good to one another. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Grandma, can I have the chocolate chips?
This secret recipe moment made possible by Emory Heart and Vascular Center. When Grandma needed heart care, she came to Emory. The difference? Emory Healthcare performs more heart procedures annually than anyone else in Georgia, which means better outcomes for our patients. And we offer advanced and personalized treatments developed by our top specialists that others don't. Like Grandma knows, where you start your heart care matters. Smart Cookie. EmoryHealthcare.org/smartcookie.